Winter in Virginia, at least our part of Virginia, is boring. We don't get a lot of snow. We don't get a lot of sunshine. We have lots of gray days, lots of wet days. And it's just a great time to stay inside and play with yarn. Even my dog would rather take a nap than go outside and play these days. I'm so thankful you decided to join me today. I am going to talk about yarn winding. So grab yourself a cup of coffee or tea, whatever's your favorite, and let's check out my yarn winder, my Swift, and how I use them to organize my stash and make my yarn a little easier to work with. Today I'm using the Knit Picks winder, and I am using a Swift that I bought on Amazon. This is the Swift you see me putting up here. It's an umbrella Swift. It looks like an umbrella. My kids are convinced that I took apart an umbrella and made this. I did not. I spent money on this, which is disappointing because this is possibly the worst Swift you can purchase. However, if you're on a tight budget, it will definitely do in a pinch. Today I'm using these two beautiful hanks of yarn from Jan at Joy of Motion Crochet. You can find the link to her yarns in the description box below. I'm going to open up this yellow hank and get it ready to work with. These hanks are tied at one end to help you keep them from tangling. So I've grabbed the hank by the part that's tied, and I'm going to make sure all of the strands are going in the right direction, and I'm going to loop it over my Swift. As you see, my Swift likes to fight back. I don't open my Swift all the way when I put the yarn on. I like to just open it part of the way, so there's lots of play to get the yarn all the way on the Swift. And then I open it further so that the yarn hank is tight and it spins smoothly. Each hank of yarn is tied either at one point or at several points by these little knots. If you just snip the yarn right next to the knot, you won't damage your hank at all, but you will need to pull out the little piece of string that's keeping all the fibers in place. Alright, next we're going to wind our yarn through the tensioner. If this is a brand new winder that you've picked up, you'll need to make sure the tensioner is snapped into place because it doesn't come in the right position. So get the tensioner in place, put your yarn through the loop, then we're going to put it through the two ridges on that top cylinder of your winder. Hold the tail tight and then give it a little spin, and make sure that as you spin it, the tail is held steady. That way it doesn't slip off while you're trying to wind, and the whole thing will just fall off. Turn it a few times and make sure that tail is secure, and then you can just set into winding pretty quickly. I love the tactile sensations of winding yarn. I like the feel and the rhythm of turning the Swift. I like the whirring sound. It's such a grounding experience. When I'm just having a really hard day coping with maybe my anxiety, I find winding a few hanks of yarn just helps me to breathe a little bit better. This yarn winder will make nice, neat center pull cakes of yarn. So as you see here, we have the hank of yarn unwound, and here is a cake. You'll see right here in the middle there's a little string. You tug that and the yarn will smoothly come out of your hank of yarn. Cake of yarn. We turned the hank into a cake. Let's talk a little bit more about my Swift. I bought this umbrella Swift on Amazon. It was incredibly affordable, probably around $15 at the time. I will link it in the description, but be warned, this is not my favorite yarn tool. It's stiff, it's not cute, it can be hard to work with, and if you're not careful, the joints on the umbrella section will snag and pull at your yarn. Not like mess up your cake pool, but like kind of shred it a little bit. Not cool. It's like not okay. So it's not my favorite yarn tool. It definitely does the job. It worked a lot better when I first purchased it than it does now, and I wonder if maybe I need to just spritz it with a little oil, like some WD-40. However, I think I would just like to upgrade to a nice wooden Swift, something that's gentler on the yarn, and something that I can either mount on the wall or I can leave up and it will look nice and not just be an eyesore. To be fair, those are definitely more expensive. I'll link the one that I've had my eyeball on in the description below so you can make the decision for yourself that best fits what you need and your budget. The yarn winder that I'm using today is from Knit Picks. This is such a great winder. It's definitely a very beginner-friendly winder. It's easy to work with. It runs smoothly. The gears are smooth. My only downsides for this are that it's kind of on the small side. It works great for these fingering weight hanks of yarn, but if you're trying to do anything with a bulky yarn or a thicker yarn or a large cake of yarn, it definitely struggles once it gets full. When I finish winding a cake of yarn, I like to fold up the yarn jacket or tag and put it inside the cake of yarn so that when I'm ready to work with this yarn, I know exactly where I got it, what it is, how much yarn is here, what is the fiber content. All of that information is right at my fingertips. Once I'm finished winding this cake, I will take the outside end and tuck it under a few strands of yarn to keep it secure. I like to make sure I have hooked that center section, the center pull tail, when I pull it off if I don't have the card I'm sticking inside. This particular yarn cake, I'm going to show you how to use a skein coat to keep it from unraveling. You can purchase these on Amazon. I'll link the shop that I got this one from in the description below. Let's take a look at my office. I'm gonna warn you, it is a mess right now. I will be working on doing a whole office yarn room makeover, so be subscribed so you get to be a part of that. But for now, I'm gonna show you a little bit of the cleaning process and how I'm going to use my winder to organize this mess. I'm going to set up my winder here. It's almost always set up here on this shelf. And I'm going to wind up all the half-used skeins of yarn that are sitting around. I'm going to frog any projects, just completely unravel any projects that I haven't worked on or I'm not going to be working on, and get that all sorted out. I also like to use my winder to help untangle yarn barf, or to wind up cakes of yarn that I know will produce yarn barf. There's certain brands of yarn that I've worked with often enough. I know that center pull skein is not going to work. I need to wind it into a cake first, so I'm not dealing with the frustration of untangling yarn all up at the beginning of my project. Here you'll see I'm slowly untangling this yarn as I wind it. And I can't tell you how embarrassed I am to show you how messy this room is. The 2020, the whole year, was a difficult year, and that final few months, I felt like everything in this office just sort of fell apart, and there was never a moment to catch up on it. But as we're still going into this new year, one of my goals for January was to get this place workable again. I hope you found some of the information in this video helpful today. I hope it will help you to choose a yarn winder and possibly a Swift, and maybe get your stash organized or make your yarn easier to use. This whole process of winding yarn. Again, I find it so calming, so relaxing. It helps me to put everything in order and make it easier to work on my projects. I'm so thankful you decided to stick around with me today and to learn about my winder and swift. I hope you subscribe and like this video. If you do, you'll get to see me organize my totally trashed yarn room because it needs some help. That video is coming very soon, so I hope you'll stick around for it. I'll see you next time.